Okay, so I do like to finish on even numbers, and we're going to stop on page 126. So we're starting in at page 76, and I'll stop at page 126 on One Night Rodeo, so that does take us through a good portion, I would say the first half of the book. So page 76, the couple has now pulled in to their neighbors, their new neighbors, if you will. Um, well, they're at their house, but they're wanting to check it all out as well, I should say. They've already been there, but now they're meeting with Josh, the guy who's been taking care of the animals. After they were through the gate, Josh handed Kyle a riding crop. This will put some of them unruly cows back in their place, or maybe it won't. I swear some of them act just because they like to feel the sting of the crop. Celia shot with a smirk. Kyle reined in close to her. Speaking from personal experience, kitten, she laughed. Wouldn't you like to know? And kicked her stirrups, galloping away from him. Oh, little wife of mine, I fully intend to find out when you stop running from me and accept this. Meaning, in his head, he's thinking when he can get her to acknowledge the marriage and not want to annul the marriage, then they both will be happy, he thinks, and they'll be able to accept the marriage. Okay, that's the clarification point from yours truly. The herd wasn't too far away from Josh's place, but the cows became agitated quickly when the three riders started driving them away from their feed. The sluggish animals moved at a snail's pace in the frigid air. When a couple of alpha cows finally took off at a brisk trot, the whole herd followed, except for half a dozen cows that decided to break away, prompting Celia to chase them down. Kyle had watched Celia racing around the barrels for all the last 4 years. Her style on the dirt was hard-working, not particularly pretty riding style, but efficient. Whereas out here in the middle of the herd, Celia was utter poetry, complete perfection as she showcased, let's see here, the skills that they were second nature to her. He would have guessed that she wasn't aware of the power and grace in her movements, or how regal and right she looked on a horse, cutting through the cattle, pushing them forward, reining in on a dime. She was born to do this, and exhilaration was on her face, told him exactly how much she missed this. That was when he knew he'd fallen for her hard, and realized that he would do anything that he could to make sure the marriage was real. And he knew exactly how to make sure she felt the same. He would give anything, he would give her back part of herself that had been missing for the past 4 years, and the ranch of her own that she dreamt of. Besides, even after half a day in the saddle herding cattle, he knew that he would never make it as a cattleman. He didn't have her by his side, and that wouldn't be the best life. Running his ranch together would be wonderful as husband and wife. Kyle, quit forsaken daydreaming over there and pay attention, his lovely bride yelled at him. He grinned and saluted. Once they reached the first gate between the fences, Kyle dismounted and tied the horses off. Since he never sorted cows except during branding, he suspected Celia had given him the hardest job, but his job was a piece of cake compared to hers. She had to check the brand on every cow and separate it from the herd, which for the animals was like a herd of mentality, which was easier said than done. Cows like to be clumped together, especially when the temperature dipped into single digits. After a few false starts, Celia pushed the first cow toward him, and it trotted into the pen. She shouted, "Look at the marking on the right hip and make sure the ones going through have our brand." "Will do." He liked that she referred to it as our brand. The noise increased longer, and they were in the midst of the herd. Celia cut one cow to him with the wrong brand, and he almost let it pass. He had to grab it by the tail and get the cow's attention, and spun it so fast that it knocked Kyle in the muck. He swatted it with a riding crop, and that could have almost sworn that he heard Celia laughing at him. Finally, Celia yelled, "I think we got 'em all, Kyle. Do a count. Count the cows, right." At least they weren't moving much. He stood in the middle of the fence and counted twice. He yelled back at Celia, 167. "Josh, is that right?" "Should be 2 more of yours. Started back out with 170, but I lost one a week's back." So Celia sliced through the herd and found the last 2 and sent them on their way. Then Celia and Josh rode over. Celia's face was damp, her cheeks were rosy, and her poor lips looked chapped and windburned. "Maybe you ought to volunteer to kiss him better," is what he's thinking. That good old boy he is. She noticed his smirk but didn't comment. Josh leaned on the saddle horn, and that took more than 3 hours. "Only," Kyle said. "With a less experienced sorter, it might have taken all dang day. You guys are a good team." Celia shot Kyle a questioning look and then glanced away. Now on to the next fun thing. If you guys are all right with it, I'll ride ahead and open the gates. That works, Celia said, and deferred to Kyle almost as an afterthought. Don't you agree, Kyle? You guys are the experts. How far do we need to drive them? About 3 miles, so some of the places between here and there will have big snowdrifts, so we'll be taking the long way. You sure this is easier than loading them in the cattle truck and dumping them out in the stock tank? Josh scratched his chin. I considered that, but the closest place you can get a cattle truck is 2 miles from here, so we might as well just push them all the way. Sounds good, Celia grinned at him. Kyle, darling, mount up. Kyle squeezed her thigh as he passed her. I've been waiting for you to say that. Took another 4 hours for them to drive the cattle to the pasture by the house. Kyle had to watch, feeling totally worthless, as Celia started up the tractor and loaded a bale of hay into the bucket. Josh sliced the netting, and Celia smoothed out a roll in the back of the bucket, and Josh used a pitchfork to spread the hay for the cattle. They were quiet on horseback right at Josh's place. Kyle was especially mired in his feelings of ineptitude and inadequacy. This was the slowest part of the season in the cattle business. What would they do when it got busy? How would he even know what to do? The last vestige of daylight disappeared as they finished brushing down the horses and putting everything away. He and Celia were about to leave when Josh's front door opened and a parka-clad woman waddled out. Immediately Josh was by her side, holding her arm to keep her from falling on the ice. She dropped the hood and smiled at Kyle and Celia. I'm Rona, Josh's wife. I couldn't believe it when Josh told me Celia Lawson had moved in next door. Rona squinted at Celia. I don't know if you remember me. Rona Minky? I graduated a year ahead of you. Yes, I remember you, Rona. We had geometry together. That's right. You were so quiet I didn't know if I ever heard you speak up in class. Celia shifted closer to Kyle. Math wasn't my best subject. So Josh tells me you guys are newlyweds. Guilty. Is it that obvious that we're wildly in love? She cooed, looking up at Kyle, practically batting her eyelashes. Wildly in love? What the heck's wrong with her? Yes, I'm happy to see it. You were always so shy. Again, what the heck, Celia? Shy since when? Hitting the rodeo circuit cured me of shyness. Good thing, huh? Celia hip-checked Kyle, or I never would have roped a hot bull rider like Kyle. Kyle wondered if she hidden a flask in her boot and had been drinking all day. Celia called him hot in front of people. He decided to go with it and hooked her arm around her shoulder. While she never lacked for hot cowboys chasing after her on the circuit, I had to bide my time, swoop in and sweep her off her boots when she least expected it. Rana sighed. So romantic. You are planning on sticking around then, not going to sell because the place is worth a lot of money. Josh flipped Rona a hood over her head. Forgive my nosy wife. She's overwhelmed with pregnancy hormones and says the first thing that pops into her head. I'm ready to have this baby now, Rona said, and flipping the hood back down. If Josh will let me out of the house, I'll bake a loaf of pumpkin bread and bring it up. That would be much appreciated. Kyle thrust out his hand. Thanks so much for everything you did today, Josh. Hopefully you won't regret having us as neighbors with all the questions that'll be coming your way. Happy to help. When Kyle opened Celia's door to help her into the truck, he saw that her wince as her back met the seat. Her ribs were probably killing her, just like her not to mention it. Neither spoke till they parked in front of the house. Anything else I need to do with the cattle tonight? He asked her. Make sure the water isn't frozen. If it is, you'll have to break off the crust. Okay, I'll load up the wood stove, check that, and then I'll be out in the middle to make sure that you didn't get that cow crap in the stitches today. I'm fine. I can help you. No, Kyle. I know your ribs are killing you, Sel. You shouldn't have done all that horseback riding today, so go on inside and take it easy. I don't take orders from you. Kyle got right in her face. In this case, you do. You're hurt. Now, either you go in that house, or I carry you in. Your choice. That's when the tough girl mask dropped, and Kyle saw the pain in her eyes. Okay, he almost carried her in anyway. During the hour it took him to finish chores, Kyle's insecurities about his ability to run the ranch resurfaced stronger than ever. You two make a good team. Those were the words floating in his head. Yes, they did. He just needed time to convince Celia of that fact. The warmth of the house soothed him. He heard the shower running and smelled the soothing cooking. Grabbing a beer, he stared at the living room picture window and waited for her. Okay, we're moving ahead. Big jump here. Page 88. All right, if we're having Boom Boom, I expect you not to have Boom Boom with anybody else. Kyle bit back a snarl. She really believed that he'd cheat on her. Then it hit him. Breck had always played around on Celia. Why wouldn't she expect that of him to do the same? Especially since he had a reputation for being as much as a horn dog as Breck was. But this was different. They were married. Celia, I promise to be faithful to you. You're my wife, even if this marriage has an expiration date. I would never disrespect you that way. I promise to honor our wedding vows. I'm not like Breck. I know that. I just wanted to hear you say that. Sometimes reassurance of what people think and what they want to hear and versus what they hear is something that's much needed. Moving forward. Page 108. Yeah, we've moved a big hunk forward. Sweet wife, your ribs were the only thing hurting yesterday, and that's what he's thinking. Over the years, he's seen her false bravado. He's seen her injured, seen her sad, seen her mad as heck, seen her devastated, but until yesterday, he'd not seen her rocked by all those emotions at one time. He never wanted to see it again. He wanted to hurt anyone who would ever put that broken look on her face. The intensity of that feeling scared him. As soon as we're done with chores today, we all have to go to town. There's no fresh food at all. Kyle poured himself a cup of coffee and refilled hers. Fresh food? What kind of fresh food? Because I ain't crazy about vegetables. Never taken a light to fruit either. Okay, page 115. Kyle wasn't much of a shopper, and he inwardly groaned when Celia bragged that she compiled 4 lists. The first stop was at a discount furniture store. After choosing a king-size bed, they sat on it, inspected, and price compared every single living room set in the place. Celia finally decided on a couch, love seat, and chair trio in the same color the salesman referred to as Spanish moss. She also insisted on taking a fabric sample to find coordinating accessories, which Kyle threw for a loop. He never pegged the tomboy, Celia, as the type to give a crap about that kind of girly domestic stuff. She never had the chance to. She never had a place of her own. That's what he's thinking in his head. Not sharing it with Celia, thinking it in his head. That thought made Kyle a lot more indulgent at the home goods store. It also prompted him to participate in the bedding selection process, but he zoned out and then compared the towel thickness and colors and debated the rug shapes and patterns. Took 2 cartful of stuffs until they finally quit browsing. He rallied at the hardware store when she looked at the living room paint samples and bedroom paint when he agreed to that. He picked up a few things that he needed, including a rodent repeller powder Josh had recommended. Kyle put his foot down when she suggested stopping at a carpet store, an electronics store, and a fabric store. Yet, he admitted he liked the grocery shopping with Celia, not only because she let him crowd her when she pretended to look at the grocery list, but he never had that type of intimacy, buying food and planning to cook meals they shared for next week. At the end of her very long list, she asked, "Can you think of anything else? Do you have stuff to cook to make me cookies?" Celia looked at him sharply. "You never mentioned cookies." And moving forward, we're finally here at 126. Okay. The boom boom and run encounters with Brock suited her fine. Trying to find her footing on the circuit discouraged a serious relationship. She watched many relationships fail in the rodeo world, and oftentimes that was what followed by future failure of careers. Like Kyle, she verified her suspicions about Breck's bisexuality by accident, walked in on Brock being with his new traveling partner over the vanity and being with him. Okay. Well, this is a short section. 166, 167. Okay, what would happen to Marshall if he rejected Kyle years ago? Sherry, this is the mom of Kyle and Celia talking, if I believe. And so she's asking, what would happen to Marshall if he rejected Kyle years ago? Sherry flashed a feral smile. Maybe I'd be in jail with Rollins right now for attempted murder if Kyle would be visiting me. Yikes, as much as Sherry frightened Celia, she had to respect the woman for her devotion to seeing that her son's needs were above everything else. I should probably go. And at Sherry's car, Celia watched Sherry's gaze become fixed on the barn. Hard to believe this is all his. I've never been able to give him much. She'd given him so much more, but she wouldn't see it or believe it now. He's trying to get a handle on all this, Sherry. He needs time. Thank you for not BSing me and saying that he doesn't blame me and that he'll come around. Oh, I've no doubt he'll come around, but Kyle has his own way of doing things in his own time frame. Celia put her hand on Sherry's arm. He loves you. You've been the one constant in his life. So you have to know he wouldn't ever turn his back on you. You raised him right, Sherry. He's a good man. Don't forget that's your doing, not Marshall's. Darn tootin'. That, oddly enough, Sherry hugged her like you said. I've been the constant in his life, the only woman who lasted. Now I'm not. I didn't want to like you, Celia, but it's hard not to. As for Kyle seeming so laid back, he's not. I'm happy to see that you do know him so well. He needs a woman who understands that about him and loves him anyway. Celia laughed. Oh, Oh, good gravy. Well, I want to cover some more parts here, but I'll give it a go. Page 188, 189. How's married life treating you? Maybelle asked. Great. We're getting a house set up, working cattle, doing all the never-ending ranch stuff, getting ready for calving. Maybelle patted her hand. Celia, dear, that's not what I meant. I wondered if you and Kyle are getting along okay. Celia bristled. Given their past, did everyone assume that she and Kyle would constantly be at war with another? Yes, we are. Why? I remember the first few months Earl and I were married. The man drove me insane. I swore that I'd made a mistake. Living with him every day was nothing like the rosy world of dating, where he was all cleaned up when he picked me up for the date and when he always was on his best behavior, listening attentively to whatever I said, buying me little tokens. I was shocked by how fast some of the wooing behavior disappeared after the wedding bells stopped pealing. But obviously you worked around it because you were married for over 50 years. Maybelle offered a sad smile. Yes, I miss that man every day, but at first it took me a while to admit that I liked the real side of Earl better than the idealized dating version. Sure, he was a slob, and he had no patience for my dilly-dallying. We'd fight over the dumbest things, and I'd storm off and I'd cry, but he wasn't mad for long. We aired our grievances, and when it was over, Celia found herself confessing. Kyle hurt my feelings yesterday. He'd been saying some mean things that I was probably oversensitive about. What did you do? Stomped off, bought myself some new clothes, stayed away from home for a few hours. What happened when you went home? He apologized without prompting. She nodded. She probably blushed to the roots of her hair as she recalled how thoroughly he had apologized. Twice. Maybelle smirked. Always liked making up part two. I'm glad to see that you're not the type who holds a grudge or to keep score. That can sour everything in a marriage right quick. You don't want to start your marriage out that way. Always take the high road when given the chance. That observation jarred Celia because she hadn't taken the high road. She actually sunk a little low, lying to Kyle about her plans for tonight, wearing an outfit that was made to feel exposed enough that she left her coat on. Did she really need to prove to Kyle that the other men found her attractive? No. Heck no. The only man that she cared about for being sexy for was Kyle, her own husband. Being here dressed like this was a pretty petty, childish thing to do, and Kyle deserved a wife who respected him in the public and in private, and as much as he respected her. That was when she knew she loved him. Not Kyle the boy, not Kyle the bull rider, Kyle her husband. The man who got her, the man who needed her, the man she needed more than she ever imagined. And more than anything, she just wanted to go home to him, hit replay, and do this all over. But she couldn't do that. But she could keep it from making it worse. Miss Maybelle, will you excuse me? I need to make a phone call. Celia scooted outside and huddled against the building as she waited for him to pick up. Kyle, can you come get me and take me home? Aren't you coming back here after the movie? Yeah, about that. We didn't go to a movie. We're at Buckeye Joe's. Silence. Then he said, I'm on my way. Page 192... 193, 194, and 195, and 196 is where I've decided to stop tonight. Kyle drove on autopilot, trying not to come up with a worst-case scenario about while Celia sounded mortified. The parking lot was jam-packed. Just as he started to get out of the truck, his cell phone buzzed with a text from Reener telling him that the guys were on their way. He found Celia in the far back corner of the bar, wearing her coat and a worried look, crying out loud. Maybe she was sick. Darling, what's wrong? She threw herself at him. I'm sorry. For what? For almost embarrassing the crap out of both of us. How much had she been drinking? Because she wasn't making a lick of sense. Come again? Yesterday, after you made that nasty crack about me, I went to Harper's store and bought some new clothing, intending to prove to you that I am a sexy hot woman and not some dorky, shapeless little girl. Sel, I thought we moved on from that. We have. Yes, you apologized to me, but I'd already made plans to come here tonight and make myself feel better by wearing something snappy. Then we planned to call you guys to come have a drink with us, so you'd walk in and see me looking so smoking hot that you would immediately regret your mean remark. I regretted it the instant I understood it hurt you, he said softly. I know, she swallowed hard, and I regret that I'm wearing this crappy outfit. I regret it to the point that I haven't taken off my coat since I got here. Kyle's eyes searched hers. Why not? Because you're the only man I want seeing me what I have on. So let me get this straight. You feel guilty about the way you're dressed? Guilty enough to tell me that you're about the way you're wearing it, but not guilty enough to let me see what you're wearing? She nodded vigorously. So can we please go home? No, show me. His tone brooked into zero arguing. Celia peeled out her shoulder to check to see if anyone was watching, and then she whipped open the coat in a fast movement that would have made a flasher proud. There, you saw it. Now can we go? He loomed over her. Take off that coat. Why? Because I told you to. A rebellious expression tightened her face, but he saw it for what it really was, fear. This was the perfect opportunity to begin showing her that he was proud to have her on his arm. Proud that she was his woman, his lover, and his wife. That he wanted her to be his wife for a hell of a lot longer than 6 lousy months. He wanted her forever. Kyle stroked the underside of that stubborn jaw with the tough, rough texture of his glove. Maybe I want everyone in Buckeye Joe's looking at you thinking, dang, when did Celia Lawson become such a wonderful woman? Maybe I want the men in that bar to eat their hearts out because all of this. His gaze traveled up and down her body to her boots. Is this all mine? And she bit out her lip. You haven't even seen the outfit yet. I don't need to see all of it. I'm sure you look fantastic. Celia's eyes softened. Given our history, I'll admit I'm itching to see the wow in your eyes. So take off that dang coat before I rip it off with my teeth. She pulled the coat open, yanked it off. And he told her to turn around. There was no back to the shirt except for flimsy leather straps, the crisscross leather on her muscled back, and if she bent over, she'd given everyone a peek at everything else. Not happening ever. She was his and only his. Kyle went from mildly amused to the caveman possessive in 3 seconds, but he had the urge to show her off. Wrapping her braid around his palm, he tugged her gently until her back met his front. He nuzzled her ear. Kitten, you're a walking wonderful woman. Cleaning up a lot of the language. She rubbed her cheek against his in a very cat-like move. He spun around and made her certain that she was pure male appreciation in his eyes before he consumed her mouth in a blistering kiss. He didn't give a hoot about being in a crowded bar. He wanted to make sure that they fed on lust. His sweet, sexy Celia held nothing back. Oh, there I am. And yes, I have a tank top on, but I have a sweater too. So I'm a little cold, a little under the weather. So bear with me. Not a request, little wife of mine. You're dancing with me now. He tossed their coats over the back of the chair and clasped her hands in his. They snaked through the tables. He nodded to several people he knew, but he didn't stop to chat. He stopped right on the edge of the dance floor, hauling her close. Kyle, this is an up-tempo song. I think we're supposed to be two-stepping. The good thing about being a bad dancer, ignoring all those pesky rules about how I'm supposed to be dancing, he murmured, besides the only person who's going to see that French flapping tonight is me. And how do you intend to make it flap if you're not spinning me on the dance floor? Over to 196. This is our stopping point tonight. So, is that a comfortable outfit? He slowly spun them into the middle of the dance floor. Not really. It's kind of tight, which is hard to believe since it doesn't have much material. There ain't going to be a problem with me tearing it off you. There would be a dang well problem with that, Kyle. This wasn't cheap, and he fused her mouth to his. The kiss was alternating between sweet, fiery, flirty, and that flat-out lewd. Ended the song when it did, because it was too dang soon for his liking. You've proven your point, she panted. Can we please go now? Nope, not until you've got that backward that you prove your point, which I needed to prove mine, which is, he offered her a wicked grin, to show my public appreciation that the wife that I have is a knockout. Wouldn't it be better to show your appreciation in private to me? Okay, it looks like I have one little paragraph on page 199, so we might as well knock that out too, and then I will call it a night at 199. As much as I'd like to hot-foot it to the truck and take you straight home to bed, I do like being out with you, and I thank you for the reminder that I don't expect us to isolate ourselves on the ranch all the time, he grinned. I cannot wait to see those other outfits you got. She kissed him. Thank you. So tomorrow, we will start in at page 204, and we're going to hope to majorly knock out some more pages. Wonderful book. I can't get enough of this author's writing, and it's amazing, and it brings out the fear that both people have about being in love and being in a lasting relationship and being scared to make the relationship last for a long length of time, let alone able to trust each other, able to believe in each other. It's a wonderful book. Can't say enough about it. Final video for tonight. Love y'all. Keep your social distance. Wash your hands. When you can't wash your hands, have that hand sanitizer. And most importantly, wear your mask. See you tomorrow.